Welcome back to St Anne's here in Higher Openshaw. I could not believe how many people turned up the other night for our talk. That was on Tuesday night. The talk was on the future of the church, specifically, I suppose, in our diocese. I'd been to a meeting where really we were discussing the declining vocations in priesthood, which is now really kind of getting a grip of the diocese, but also the fact that a lot of our priests are now very elderly, and some who, for those who don't know, normally priests retire at the age of 75, but many priests decide to carry on working. So we still have a lot of priests who are over the age of 75 who are still holding down the role of parish priest, really. So we had 36 people came to the meeting on Tuesday night, which is kind of unheard of, really. But nonetheless, we talked about the declining numbers of priests from, say, the 1970s to the present date. And the reason for the meeting was not just to give a whole load of statistics, but was to ask the laity, where they thought we could go in the future. The clergy have been discussing this for quite a while now, but some very interesting things came from that meeting. One individual who was very involved with, if you remember, going back to the whole notion of faith in the future, excuse me, and around faith in the future, we had a whole series of meetings about collaborative ministry, that is, lay people working alongside priests and the kind of things that could be done. But it would seem that somehow over the years that those meetings were running, they seem to have lost steam somehow. And it would seem that those people who were involved back then are themselves now getting a bit older, and they don't have as much time, or they don't perhaps have as much enthusiasm. But I think one of the things, that came out of the meeting was that what we are now facing has to be more than collaborative ministry. Really, I think parishes in the not too distant future will have to run themselves by lay people, and the priest will be the instrument of the sacraments then, coming from parish to parish, providing the sacraments and the Mass and whatever else is needed. This has been done for a very long time in places like South America. Some places in Africa is very similar to this. But the problem is that our culture is a very different one to, say, South America. Our culture is one of having plenty of churches, plenty of priests, and we've had them, for the last century and a half, really. We've never been in a situation where we are now, and that is that priests are very scarce and very far and few between. Salford is one of the dioceses that perhaps is better off than most. Maybe Liverpool, Birmingham, Westminster, they are fairly well off with priests like Salford. But you turn to places like East Anglia, Portsmouth, Plymouth, any of those areas, they've been struggling with their numbers of priests for absolute years and years. So the question is, what is going to happen now in our own Diocese of Salford? Because I think my major problem as a priest working in the diocese is that our people, the laity themselves, are really not prepared for coming together, where perhaps we amalgamate 2, 3 or even 4 parishes into one. They still want their own priest. They still do a lot of demanding. They're not prepared to come together as a new community to work together for the future. And, no matter how much we tell ourselves that, yes, we are prepared, when it happens to your parish, the reaction is always sadly the same. People get very upset, even to the extent of walking away from the church altogether, not prepared to move forward in any manner. So at the end of the meeting, I left it with the people who were there that Perhaps they need to call their own meeting, a meeting that I wouldn't go to, and then perhaps I could receive some feedback from that meeting. It would be very interesting to see how a meeting like that, without a facilitator like a parish priest, runs itself, and the ideas that can come from it, because I am sure there are many, many ideas out there just waiting to come to the fore. But of course, one of the huge problems that we have is getting the people involved. Because no matter what you do as a parish priest, no matter how many meetings you have, and no matter what they are about, the same few individuals always turn up. Those that are always prepared to support whatever the church does. The problem is, there's a whole load of people out there that aren't. I remember I said this at the meeting on Tuesday, a very long time ago. An elderly priest said to me, when you move to a new parish, 2% of the people will love you, 2% of the people will absolutely hate your guts, and the rest really won't care. And you know, that's a real sad indictment on the members of the church, if indeed that is the case. So I put this to anyone out there who is the members of the laity. What are you going to do for the church in the future? What have you got to offer? Perhaps to the people of St. Anne's in particular, the next time there is a laity meeting about the church in the future, and that's what we'll call it, a meeting about the church in the future, so that you know this is what we're talking about. When you see that on the newsletter, when you hear me telling about that meeting at Mass, are you going to come? Are you prepared to put yourself forward for your church? It will be interesting to see. Until next time, God bless you all. Thanks for listening.